Are you tired of hearing about sanctions crippling the Russian economy? Well, get ready for a plot twist. Putin just pulled a move that has left the West scratching their heads. In a bold move, the Russian president has effectively neutralized oil sanctions on his country, leaving many wondering what this means for the future of the global oil industry. Join us as we delve into the details of this surprising turn of events and explore what it means for the world of business and finance. Attention all investors and business leaders. The recent decree signed by Russian President Vladimir Putin on December 27, 2022 is a game changer in the oil and gas industry. The decree is a bold and necessary countermeasure against the G7's unfair $60 per barrel price cap on Russian seaborne oil. As of February 1, 2023, the ban on the sale of oil and oil products under sales contracts based on the price cap for Russian oil will become effective. This is a significant move by the Russian government to protect their state budget revenue, which heavily relies on oil and gas sales. With the ban in place, the supply of Russian oil will be limited and demand will increase. This will drive up the price of Russian oil, which is already selling at a discount to international benchmarks such as Brent. Investing in Russian oil and gas now will lead to massive profits down the line. Furthermore, the ban does not allow Putin to make exceptions to the application of this rule. This means that there is still a possibility for those who align with Russian interests to purchase Russian oil and oil products. It's a win-win situation for investors and Russian oil firms. The global oil market is shrouded in both official and unofficial versions of reality, making it difficult to discern the truth. However, it's important to consider the implications of the recent ban on Russian oil by EU countries and Russia's response to it. The official version suggests that the ban will have a significant impact on oil output, as confirmed by Russia's Deputy Prime Minister, Alexander Novak. He stated that output may decrease by 5 to 7% due to G7 sanctions imposed on the sector after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022. Additionally, respected organizations such as OPEC and the International Energy Agency, or the IEA, are predicting a decline in Russian liquids output by up to 1.4 million barrels per day in 2023, with a reduction of 850,000 barrels per day expected in the short term. Get ready for a strong dose of reality. Despite rumors to the contrary, there's simply no reason to expect Russia's oil output to decrease in 2023. In fact, there are several compelling reasons why Russia will maintain its current levels of production. First and foremost, Russia is still making a handsome profit on every barrel of oil it produces, whether it's sold at a discount to the benchmark or not. As a result, Russia has a vested interest in keeping production levels at the pre-Ukraine war norm, which maximizes government revenues. With a budget break-even price per barrel of Brent oil equivalent at around $40, on par with the best of U.S. shale producers, a $60 per barrel cap is more than enough to keep Russia's profits flowing. So don't be fooled by the rumors of a Russian oil output decline. The facts speak for themselves. Russia will continue to churn out oil at pre-war levels, secure in the knowledge that it's making money hand over fist. We need to clarify something here. The discount demanded by major buyers like India and China since the Ukraine war began is not from the price cap, but from the market price of oil. That means that even with Brent sitting at a lofty $80 per barrel, Russia is still pocketing a cool $56 per barrel from these buyers. And let's be real, that's nothing to sneeze at. Russia is still making a healthy profit from its oil sales, even with the discount demanded by these major buyers. And let's not forget that Russia is the world's second largest oil exporter after Saudi Arabia. Its oil and gas sales account for almost half of the country's state budget revenue. So when you hear about Russia's ban on oil supplies to EU countries, remember that it's all about maintaining this healthy profit margin. It's quite ironic that the G7 price cap on Russian oil is actually higher than the current market price. This fact may come as a surprise to some, but it's no secret that Russian oil is being sold at a hefty discount to certain buyers worldwide. In other words, the cap is not only unnecessary, but it also fails to account for the realities of the global oil market. It's clear that the G7 imposed this cap in response to recent tensions with Russia, rather than any economic or market-driven reason. Furthermore, the idea that Russia would suffer greatly from this cap is simply a myth. Russia has a number of tactics at its disposal to evade or mitigate the effects of the cap. In fact, it's highly unlikely that the cap would cause a significant reduction in the supply of Russian oil to the global market. It's more likely that this cap is an attempt to send a political message to Russia rather than an effective economic policy. It's important to recognize the imposition of price caps or sanctions by the G7 or any other group will not limit Russia's ability to supply oil to the global market. Russia has already demonstrated its ability to work around such measures by utilizing the same sanctions-avoiding mechanisms that Iran has been employing since the 1979 sanctions. Russia can easily get more of its oil into Europe at prices that exceed the imposed caps without any difficulty. It's clear that Russia's oil industry is prepared to go to great lengths to ensure that they maintain their dominance in the global oil market, so any attempts to limit their profits through caps or sanctions will be futile. When it comes to sanctions, there are always ways around them, and the shipping industry has provided ample evidence of that. The most basic method is simply disabling the automatic identification system on ships carrying Russian oil, rendering them invisible to authorities. Another tried and trusted method is to lie about destinations and shipping documentation, as Iran's former petroleum minister, Bijan Zangana, boasted about in 2020. By changing the documents and specifications for oil going into Europe, Iran successfully shipped oil under the radar. Russia can use this same method, and it has proven successful in the past. Southern European ports that are less rigorously policed, like those in Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Macedonia, and Croatia, offer a way in. From there, the oil can be easily moved into Europe's biggest oil consumers, including through Turkey. For Asian-bound shipments, Malaysia and to a lesser extent Indonesia provide reliable routes for Iranian-sanctioned oil. The oil is then forwarded to China, with tankers bound ultimately for China, engaging in or at sea or just outside port transfers of Iranian oil onto tankers flying other flags. These methods have been tried and tested and have worked for other countries. So why not for Russia? Just imagine a scenario where Russia bans the export of its oil to the EU. It's a concerning thought, but before we panic, let's look at the facts. According to senior sources in the oil industry, Russia could quickly secure access to at least 3/4 of the shipping needed to move its oil to established buyers, even up to 90% within a few weeks. This means that the impact on the global oil markets would be minimal, even with the price cap in place. Before the invasion of Ukraine, Russia was exporting around 2.7 million barrels of crude oil per day to Europe, along with another 1.5 million barrels of oil products, primarily diesel. However, as of January 2022, Russia's total global oil exports were 7.8 million barrels per day, of which 2/3 were crude and condensate. With this in mind, the global oil markets would only lose between 0.78 million and 1.95 million barrels per day of pre-Ukraine invasion levels of Russian oil, even with the cap in place. So while a ban on oil exports from Russia to the EU is a concerning prospect, it's important to remember that the impact on global oil markets would be limited. It's time to dispel the myth that a Russian oil supply loss due to sanctions is imminent. The truth is that such a scenario is highly unlikely. Russia has multiple options to bypass these sanctions, including access to a vast fleet of tankers from Iran, China, Hong Kong, and India, among others. Additionally, the supposed obstacle of shipping, cargo protection, and indemnity insurance is a baseless concern. Such insurance could easily be covered by the countries mentioned, as has been done in the past when similar sanctions were placed on Iranian oil tanker fleets by the U.S. Rest assured, the Russian oil industry will not be held hostage by Western sanctions. The industry is resilient and adaptable, with the resources and connections to continue supplying oil to established buyers at fair prices. It is evident that Putin's recent verbal warnings about the $60 price cap are an attempt to prevent any misguided notions about the decreasing cap to the originally proposed levels of $20 to $30 per barrel of Brent equivalent. Such a drastic increase would result in Russian oil sales operating at a loss, which is simply unacceptable. Both Putin and Russia's oil firms are happy with the current cap, as are all buyers who can obtain Russian oil at this price point. Even the U.S., through comments made by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, has expressed satisfaction with India continuing to purchase Russian oil at prices above the G7-imposed cap mechanism if necessary. It's crystal clear that having lower oil and gas prices benefits the U.S. and its developed market allies. It's not just about inflation and interest rates. It's also about avoiding potential recessions in those countries. Traders are equally content with lower prices as they can make significant profits short selling oil and gas. The only ones who may not be pleased with this situation are the oil companies, even though they are still making considerable profits at these levels. In response to the West's imposed price caps, the Russian Energy Ministry has been working diligently on new measures to limit discounts to international benchmarks on Russian oil prices. This is crucial since Russia is the world's second largest oil exporter after Saudi Arabia, and nearly half of the country's state budget revenue comes from oil and gas sales. It's time to recognize the benefits of keeping oil and gas prices lower and support measures that will maintain stability in the market. In a bold move, President Vladimir Putin has taken steps to protect Russia's oil industry by signing a decree that bans the supply of crude oil and oil products to nations that violate the price cap. This measure ensures that Russia's oil remains competitive in the global market, as it traditionally sells at a discount to international benchmarks such as Brent. Unfortunately, Western sanctions over Ukraine have caused this discount to widen, making it necessary for Russia to take action to protect its oil industry. The presidential decree, which was published in December, prohibits Russian companies from referring to the illegal price cap limitations in any way, directly or indirectly. This ban extends to all transactions with Russia crude oil up to the end user, meaning the traders who do not enforce the measure will be excluded from working with Russian oil. This measure is necessary to ensure that Russia's oil industry remains profitable and competitive in the global market. By taking these steps, President Putin is sending a strong message to the international community that Russia is serious about protecting its oil industry. This move will help to ensure that Russian oil remains an important player in the global market and will protect the interests of Russia's oil companies and the country's state budget revenue. So what do you think about Putin's move to ban the supply of crude oil and oil products to nations that abide by the price cap? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you got some value out of this video, please consider liking and subscribing. And don't forget to check more of our content on our YouTube channel.